morning from this Medjugorje LGBT ministry. So as you all know, this week has been quite a significant week when it comes to LGBT things in the Catholic Church. Why? Well, because Pope Francis has come out and made a number of statements. The first statement he made earlier in the week is that homosexuality is not a crime, and in the process of making that statement, he said something like it's a sin. And of course, Catholic moral teaching teaches that homosexuality is not a sin, which is why James Martin, a Jesuit priest, wrote to Pope Francis just for further clarification. And thank God, Pope Francis wrote a lovely letter back to Father James Martin, explaining and clarifying exactly what he meant. And so beside me I have this letter. So first of all, I'm just going to go through what James Martin sent to Pope Francis. So he said, he asked Pope Francis 3 questions. Number 1, Holy Father, thank you for your strong call to decriminalizing homosexuality. Why did you decide to say this at this time? Number 2, there seems to have been some confusion about your comment, being gay is a sin, which of course is not part of church teaching. My feeling is that you are simply repeating what others might say hypothetically. So, do you think that simply being gay is a sin? Quite a direct question to the Pope. And number 3, what would you say to Catholic bishops who still support the criminalization of homosexuality? So, 3 simple questions really. Why did he mention homosexuality isn't a crime at this time? Could he clarify about the sin thing? And number 3, what would he say to bishops who are still in favour of homosexuality being a crime? So Pope Francis writes back, Dear brother, thank you for your letter. It is not the first time that I speak of homosexuality and of homosexual persons. And I wanted to clarify that it is not a crime in order to stress that criminalization is neither good nor just. So we'll just stop on that one. Well, why is criminalization neither good nor just? Well, imagine if it was a criminal offence to be a straight person. Imagine, for example, all the husbands that at times have cheated on their wives, or imagine the people that have had sex before marriage, and imagine if every single time that was a crime. Imagine if they're running around in fear. How would anyone ever even have a girlfriend? How would anyone ever even have a wife? It would be ludicrous. Now that is of course not to say that sex before marriage isn't a sin, but he's just making the big difference between something being a sin and something being a crime. Then he goes on to say, when I said it is a sin, I was simply referring to Catholic moral teaching, which says that every sexual act outside of marriage is a sin. So there the Pope is clarifying that what he was talking about are homosexual acts rather than homosexuality itself. Of course, one must also consider the circumstances which may decrease or eliminate fault. So what does he mean by that? Well, if you read the Catechism around sin, it says that the circumstances around given sins can decrease or eliminate the person's fault. For example, there's a big difference in the court system between premeditated murder and manslaughter. And depending on certain circumstances, for example, like if a person was mentally unwell, mentally unstable, they mightn't be to blame at all. Or similarly, if someone was breaking into your house in the middle of the night and you hit them over the head with something and they died, that would be a totally different circumstance than to you breaking into their house and deliberately killing them with a gun for no reason, only malice. And so basically the Pope is saying the same thing when it comes to things like homosexual acts or other sexual acts as well for straight people, that depending on social factors, depending on things like vice, depending on things like struggle, the difficulties, the passion, the influence of people around them, people aren't fully in control, and so depending on all these circumstances, perhaps as well the lack of pastoral support and things like that in the church, so depending on different circumstances, the person committing the act, even though the act itself isn't good, the person committing the act may have very, very small or even no responsibility. So then he goes, as you can see, I was repeating something in general. I should have said it is a sin, as in any sexual act outside of marriage is a sin. This is to speak of the matter of sin. But we know well that Catholic morality not only takes into consideration the matter, but also evaluates freedom and intention, and this for every kind of sin. And that's why often when we go to confession, we might tell the priest what we did, but it can also be very important to tell the priest some of the circumstances around what we did, because that gives the priest a better understanding of the sin in terms of how bad a sin it was, what we really did, our intentions. Now, of course, some priests will say, I just want to know what you did and stop trying to sugarcoat it, stop trying to excuse yourself. Well, there's a big difference between trying to excuse yourself and just trying to give the priest the bigger picture. Because with the bigger picture, the priest, he can give you absolution, but hopefully as well, Jesus can speak through him, and he can give you words of wisdom, words of advice, words of counsel, and words of encouragement. And so, to stress again, the circumstances around sins are very, very important. So then he goes on to answer the third question. And I would say to whoever wants to criminalize homosexuality that they are wrong. So, in a televised interview, he goes on to say, where we spoke with natural and conversational language, it is understandable that there would not be such precise definitions. So in other words, what he's saying there is because he was giving a televised interview the other day, he was speaking in a more casual matter than if he had been speaking at a formal conference, and so when he was speaking loosely, things were interpreted in a more casual way. Now, of course, one could say, being Pope, that he should have perhaps been a little bit more careful about how he spoke. I don't know. But anyway, the Holy Spirit comes round and does all these things, and after this letter, now he sent out this clarification, which is even clearer than the statement he made the first time. And then he just goes on to say, I pray for you and for your work. Please do the same for me. May Jesus bless you, and may the Holy Virgin protect you. Fraternally, Francisco. So, what a beautiful message from our Pope. The Pope isn't changing the church teaching. The Pope is simply saying that the church teaching has to factor in, which it always says, has to factor in the circumstances, has to factor in people's weaknesses and stuff like that, and that sins are not crimes, and that homosexual people need to be treated with love and with dignity, with compassion. So thank you for watching, and I hope that this has helped you to understand our ministry a little bit better, and also that it's helped you to open your heart even wider to helping and embracing LGBT people to come to Jesus progressively and gradually, just like everybody else, and to find a path of holiness and wholeness. So have a lovely Sunday. God bless. Thank you for watching.